Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. I have Cristy Murray, a Christian neurocoach, empowers individuals to overcome narcissistic relationships and generational trauma. Through healthy boundary setting and science-based brain rewiring techniques, she leads clients on transformative paths towards healing, growth, and lasting change. Christy's mission is to offer guidance and tools for liberation from toxic dynamics and to inspire personal thriving. Wow, thank you so much, Chrissy, for joining me on my show today. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited today about this.
Yes, me too. And if you can just go ahead and describe your unique approach you take as a Christian neurocoach to help individuals navigate away from narcissistic relationships and generational trauma.
So, it's one thing to have science-backed um, resources. I mean, we can always research the science. There's always research for it. And then, you're taught that, okay, your brain works a certain way. But then you have your feelings that you're like, well, especially for people who are raised in narcissistic homes, this is a lifelong conditioning. And unless you actually like stumble, a lot of people just stumble on it like, well, something's not right, and then they start looking for resources, and then they start to pick up bits and pieces that, okay, well, this is not right, and then they correlate it to the facts. And then, like in my case, I read a book that pretty much like laid out everything, and that's how I got my answers. So that's, having the knowledge is one thing. Knowing how your brain works is another. It's another layer, and it's great because if you know how your brain works, I mean, it's wonderful. Then you just stop with the blaming and the shaming and the guilt tripping that was put upon you growing up. And then the Christian side of it is really the support. And a lot of people too, like with the comes with generational trauma, religion is weaponized. Religion is used as shaming the person, guilting the person, and like using Jesus as a tool to, okay, he's there to punish you. And if you don't do what I say, you're going to be punished. If you're not obedient to me, Jesus is going to get mad at you. But that's not how Jesus is. Jesus loves you, and he died on the cross to save us, whether we deserved it or not. So, like, looking to Jesus as, well, you follow Jesus because you're afraid of him, it's not really a good approach. It's really, you should like love Jesus because he loves you, and he's going to get you out of the mud, the situation, and he's going to help get you out of that generational trauma that you have been enmeshed in. So that's the Christian supportive cycle, or phase that everyone needs to be on, because we can't do it alone.
Mhm.
We just can't. I mean, no matter how, I don't care how smart you are, how great you are, how much accomplishments you have. I mean, faith is a really big part of what we do. And if you don't have faith in Jesus, you don't believe that there's Jesus to help save you and get you out of those things, it's you're going to spin your circles around. That's why I really love with understanding yourself, understanding how your brain works, and then really understand what Jesus has in store for you. Because you growing up, you might feel that that's just how you are, and that's what you're meant to be. But if you know Jesus and you know how much he loves you, you'll know that's he didn't make you to suffer. He didn't make you to be someone's doormat. He didn't make you to be someone, to be manipulated.
Right. No, that was beautifully said. And it reminds me of when I was little. So I didn't really grow up religious or spiritual. It was until later in life that I already knew about Jesus and I know he's supposed to love you and everything, but I really wasn't following Jesus because I was not doing what he was teaching. I was doing the complete opposite and I had to find myself again and I found myself through Christ. But it reminded me as a little girl when I was 6 though. I remember me playing on my aunt's piano singing the I love Jesus, just I love Jesus, I love Jesus, I love Jesus. And but I kind of put Jesus on the back burner as I was growing up because there I was then into my addiction and then into my bad mindset with everything. I was in probably narcissistic relationships. I was also in abusive relationships, and I was also in the abuser in some relationships in some cases. And I really had to sit down with myself and say, okay, God, if this was back in 2017 or so, I was like, please, I cannot fight this addiction by myself. And that's why you bring up a good point. We cannot do this alone. There's just no way. There is no way. You really do need to look up to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I said that out loud, I literally had to call out. Then that was it. Game changer. It was a blessing in disguise. I was hospitalized, but I mean, I needed to be hospitalized. And it was at a faith-based hospital with this doctor talking to me, saying I'm going to die within 10 years and all I can see is her necklace and hear a cross, you know. I'm like, okay, something's going on here. I need to check out why I'm here. You know, chaplain prayed over me. And then I went ahead and left the hospital after a week, stopped drinking completely, no desire for it anymore. It literally changed my life. I started going to church, serving, met my husband in street ministry. Now I'm remarried. And like it does change your life. And then I also got a coach. She wasn't into like Christianity or anything, but she really helped me with my mind. So I love mindset coaches. I love working with the mind. I love how you can help with helping with our limiting beliefs because we talk so bad to ourselves sometimes. It's like, why? So I'm so happy you brought up Jesus and how when we do have him in our life and with that Christ consciousness, there's no stopping. And there's just the love is unconditional. So it's just an amazing experience. And that's what I always say. Really look to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would say he's the one who saved me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy. Thank you for sharing that. Sorry, this is really beautiful. And it really also brings me back to if just like you said, look up, everything will fall into place for you. The resources that you wouldn't even like think that would like fall in, it's all of a sudden would be just right in front of you. So he provides for us. Like in your case, you said that doctor was talking to you, but then you saw his necklace and then you're like, okay, so the seed's been planted and it's your sign. So you follow these like wonderful seeds and then here you are beautifully grown in Christ.
Yes, yes. And it's an amazing experience. Like we're teaching our children to because we try to do well, my husband, because he's the leader in the household, so he tries to conduct the Bible study. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, and sometimes I'm not in the mood. Not in the mood. I just want to go to bed. I have a headache, but then I always find like a little bit more joy when we just do it anyway. It's just like only about 5 minutes out of our day we just pray together, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so he definitely makes that a priority, and it is good to have a nice leader in the household who also is a godly man. So, and
Mm-hmm.
that was very important. And I noticed all my past relationships, they weren't godly men. I mean, they would say they were, but they really weren't because we were doing everything opposite of what Christ would want us to do. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, and that goes along too with just knowing the type of people that you surround yourselves with. It
Hmm.
really makes a big difference. Because if you're like, I mean, in the Bible, was it in the Bible? And I'm sorry for this. There's
No,
a
it's
saying
okay.
that you tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Because
Oh, yeah.
we are a reflection of who we surround ourselves with, and we pick up their habits, hopefully they pick up on our good habits, but it's really hard if you're in that toxic enmeshment, whether it's toxic family, toxic friends, toxic workplace. You really have to like get yourself out of there. And it's amazing. You'll really notice the difference. Like you said, you compared your relationships before your husband. It's like, wow, it's a night and day, and you're in a better place now with him.
Yes, and always about setting healthy boundaries was very important too. And I know it's crucial
Mhm.
in any healing process. What practical steps do you actually recommend to someone who is struggling to establish these in their personal relationships?
So actually, I have a 3-step process that I use in neurocoaching. So the first one is really to recognize what is happening and be open to acknowledging that this isn't right and something is not right here. I'm going to go look for help, whether I'm going to pray, I'm going to read some books, I'm going to go to support groups or talk to someone about it. If we are just like stuck in that place of like, well, this is just how it is and that's how it's always been, and just no good at this. Like you said, we talk ourselves and we're so mean to ourselves. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, girl, you don't deserve that. Well, who says you don't deserve it? Who says you don't deserve to be loved? Who says you're not good enough? So
Right.
recognize that you are good enough and you deserve to be loved. You deserve to be happy and you deserve Jesus' love. So that's the first R. And the second R for me is to why am I blanking out? So you
Yes.
recognize and then you recover. So then you get the recovery phase. Now you know this in the recognize phase, you know the signs. Then you slowly like pick up on those signs. And in the recover phase, you start changing those things slowly. No one, you didn't get here overnight, so it's not gonna just change when you wake up in the morning, like magically, as much as we want to.
Yeah.
um, so the what did I say? So we have the recognized space, and then we have the I'm still blanking out.
Oh,
I'm
it's the
sorry.
recovery. I
Recovery.
know
Yes.
recovery because I was in recovery so long. So that R
Yes. There
resonates
you
with me
go.
so much.
Yes. So then you recover, you start putting the boundaries, and then you start taking care of yourselves, putting in your self-care routine, and don't feel bad about it. And as women, we talk about like, oh, we do all these things. Maybe you can have it all, but not all at the same time. We go through phases in our lives, and being in women's health, we go through phases in our cycle.
Oh
we
my
The
goodness.
first
Yeah.
week is different, the hormonal shifts are different, just like what we do, you know, there's seasons. There's summer where we all are outside planting. Winter is when we retreat and stay inside and nurture ourselves. So that the second phase is you recover. You put things in place and you start taking care of yourself. And then my third phase would be to thrive. So now that you've recognized what's happening, you're aware of it, and you've accepted those facts, and then accepted the things that they're out of your control. And then you're in recovery, you have the tools, you're slowly setting the tools, you're getting out of those toxic relationships, and now you're thriving. So it's like really, if you're outside, let's make an example. If you're outside gardening, you come inside, you have your dirty gloves, you have your and then you see, oh, I'm really dirty, I can't like walk around all day like this. And then you start like shedding the dirty gloves, and then you wash your hands. So then you're in recovery, and then you're thriving. Maybe after a shower, now you're making your meal, and then you're sitting down with your family, and then you're enjoying your day.
Yes, it reminds me a long time ago, our old pastor, before we moved to San Jose. I live in California, so I don't know if you're familiar with the cities there, but we used to live in Fremont and we used to go to a church. And I remember the pastor was always saying what Jesus does is in your life, and it reminded me it was three R's. It was oh no, now I'm blanking now. Restore, renew, or is it restore, renew? What was the third R? There was a third R. I think renew is the last one. But anyway, it reminded me of that. And it's so true. It's like, we're actually going to be, was it refined? Refine, restore, and renew. I think also,
We're like getting our R's mixed up today.
yeah, I think it was those three. Yeah. And so it's like, it reminded me of that. And I love that. So thanks for sharing that. Now, talking about, because you were just mentioning about how we talked so negatively to ourselves, and it's like I always often ask, like, okay, would I talk to a stranger or a child like that? No. So we always question, like, why are we
Mm-hmm.
talking to ourselves like that? Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do you actually incorporate brain rewiring techniques in your coaching to assist clients in overcoming
Mm-hmm.
deeply ingrained negative thought patterns?
I'm glad you asked that. This is the wonderful thing about neurocoaching, and I didn't really know about it until I went and learned about it. So got I got into neurocoaching initially because I wanted to be productive for my nutrition business, and then so like things come up during the coaching sessions, and that's why it's really important to get a coach, because it's just you just need to detach yourself and be in the seat. Like I am a nurse practitioner. I mean, I'm not a pediatric nurse practitioner. So when my kids get, get sick, like I can't treat them because that's not my specialty. And I'm a mom. I won't be
Yeah.
a mom, and I'll bring them to someone else. Um, so with the neuro coaching is like things come up during the sessions, and like, oh, why do you not feel like doing this? And then like through a series of questions, like things come up, because this happened when I was a child. And then you start seeing the patterns of like, oh my goodness, throughout my life, there's this pattern of like me going and then I'll stop, me going and then I'll stop. And then you start to, and it's really amazing how, like, even watching other people, that things that they don't even know, it just comes out during the session. Like, oh, because I was told this when I was 8, and it just stuck with me. So something happened, maybe on purpose, maybe not on purpose. Um, as a child, maybe someone just said, you're just not good enough. You just you're not made for this. So we carry that as an adult, and when we embark on something and things get hard, that gets repeated in our head. Oh, I can't do this. I'm not made for this. So what you do is you stop and then you do something else. So then you have these series of things that you get excited about starting and then you don't finish. Or you're the high achiever that constantly going and going and going because somewhere in your childhood you were told that you're not good enough. So then you try to rise above it. So you try to prove yourself. Oh, I can do everything because I'm not going to be hurt anymore. No one's going to tell me that I'm not good enough, and I'm going to show them. So there's these patterns that you look back in your life and then you start accepting that, you know what, that's not how it is. So then we start doing our brain priming, right? We write things down, like how did that certain moment make you feel, and would you say that, like talking about we're so mean to ourselves, would you say that to someone that you love? Like someone told you you're not good enough. Let's say your husband, would you go and tell your husband, listen, you're not good enough. No one likes you. And it's just so hurtful, right? Why would you like say that to yourselves? And if you're going to protect that person that you love from these negative thoughts, why would you keep repeating it to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So then we start looking for evidence of like logical evidence that, wait, I am good enough because I've done all these things. I've graduated with honors and I like finished this training and I have this certificate and I'm helping people and people, love to be around me and they tell me these things. So then there's that shift in your emotions, because we look at emotions and thoughts together. When they're combined, they form our beliefs, and that's what keeps getting repeated. So if we change the emotions, that we get to tell our brain how to feel, then we start shifting what our brain tells us, because our brain likes to conserve glucose. It's just going to go with like what's been happening, whether it's true or not. If you keep telling your brain you're not good enough, it's going to like say, oh yeah, you are. You're not good enough. But if you tell your brain that, wait, I am good enough and I got this. So after like so many times of doing it, we call it brain priming. After like 67 days of you telling yourself that, your brain's going to catch on and be like, you know what, you are good enough. Why don't you go do that? So then you start like feeling like the shift, like in you. You may start skipping. You're just like more joyful and happier because you're not in that box anymore where you've been placed and told that you're a certain way, but you're really not. So really like looking for these things, and then we start rewiring, and then so we like the negative thoughts, we'll just prune that, and then we start forming new neural pathways with the new brain priming that we have.
Yeah,
So then
that's very true.
eventually you're like, wow, the things that I used to react to, it's not like affecting me that same way anymore. And that's the beauty of it. It's like, it's not just one situation. You get the tools of learning how. So, like, pretty much anything that happens from then on, you're like, okay, I'm a different person now. I've been elevated. I'm a different level. So people that used to like say certain things, it doesn't affect me as much anymore.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to fake it until you make it, just start saying nice things to yourself. Even if you don't believe it at first, just start saying it. Like you said, then your brain gets then used to it, then it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
manifest. And also you have to remind yourself that you are created in a child from the Most High. He's not going to make any, it's not gonna make something that. He doesn't love and cherish, it doesn't.
Exactly.
So you have to think about that, like, hey, I'm no mistake, like I am a child of
Hmm.
God. Like, I mean, almighty of the whole universe, you know what I'm saying? It's like the whole
Yes.
universe. And that's thing is like, who knows how big it is. So only he knows.
Yes.
And so it's like, come on, you have to think of it that way too. It's like, come on.
Hmm.
So yeah, just
Yes,
reframing
I'm
and
glad.
changing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, that you, hey, I'm not a mistake. And we are not. So being in the infertility world in my regular job as a women's health nurse practitioner, there's there's so many things that have to go right for a child to be born healthy.
Mhm.
There's so many things that have to be at a perfect place at a perfect time for that egg to be fertilized and then to implant and then to form. It's a miracle.
It
So,
is.
you are not a mistake. You were born because God wanted you to be born. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that were in perfect timing, in perfect harmony. That's why you're here.
Exactly. I was like, it took me a while to find my purpose. I'm like, what is my purpose here? And it takes time because I was distracted with, alcohol and partying and everything. So that distraction, like, I strayed away from the divine. And then it wasn't until then I stopped and was sober minded that I started getting like really close to the Holy Spirit that's inside. And then I noticed that I would just use ask the Holy Spirit everything. Like, hey, what do I need to do now? What do I need to do? you know, and
Yeah.
I would be guided. I literally feel like I'm just being guided constantly, and yeah, always there to help you too.
Yes, exactly. You start hearing, yeah, and sometimes, and like for me, sometimes I even like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that on my own. And then you start thinking, oh, that must be the Holy Spirit because, like, what are the chances? There's no such thing as coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And also in your coaching practice, like how do you help individuals identify and challenge their limiting beliefs that may have originated from like toxic dynamics, like in relationships or even generational trauma?
Hmm. So, I think it's similar to what we have talked about, how we're going to do the brain priming. So the first step is really that we, recognize like, why do you think what's wrong? Right? I mean, for them to seek help, they must realize that, okay, something is not right. Why am I being treated this way? I don't like this. So we start like looking into like what are the situations that, like let's call it triggers, right? Like what happened and what's bothering you today and how did that make you feel. So, and then we use pen and paper actually. I mean, the coaching is recorded, but I always have to have them like write pen and paper because it's a tactile connection. When we write things down, it's more solid in our brain. So just like writing things down, like what happened, and then we go back to what was your reaction, and what could you have done differently. If a lot of people would say, well, if only they did it, but it's like, but we are not talking about them, and we can only control yourself. So then it's really like, and then I use their words. Like I would ask them, like, how did that make you feel? Or um, what do you think you could have done differently? And what was your goal? So it's like really a lot more just more prompting and giving my clients the space that
Yeah.
otherwise if they're in a busy world or someone's in a rush, you mean you can't do that, right? It's
Right. Yeah. And that's probably one of the challenges, but do you come across any other challenges your clients face when attempting to break free from whatever
mm-hmm.
challenge they're going through?
Yeah, I actually have a client. She's like, well, I don't want to talk about this right now, this is too hurtful.
Yeah.
But it's like, but you want to move forward. So that's a little bit more challenging because and eventually, I mean, I can tell in the calls, they're like, gosh, why are you even asking me this? And like it's a simple question, but I have a hard time answering this. So yeah, that's one of the challenges when they're like, it's too painful for them to really even talk about this. I can't like tell them what to do.
Yeah, there's like, oh, I'll tell you on my own time. but it needs to come
Yeah.
out. That's it's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
maybe write it out, and then you can read it to me on paper, you know,
Yes.
or something like that. It's because sometimes it's like when they start sharing, it's like too much. But if they write it, like, because were talking about the whole pen and paper aspect, and if you go ahead and write it, and it's kind of like therapeutic, and then they can read it to
Mm-hmm.
you and just be like, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is
Mm-hmm.
what's going on in my life.
Yeah, and like I guess the biggest challenge is like people want certain things, but then they don't want to do the work.
Action steps are the most important. How taking action and
Yes.
doing what you're teaching your clients to do. Like, hey, we've come with these solutions. Now let's go ahead and put them into action. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
up to them. And I noticed for
Mm-hmm.
myself back in when I had my coach, I literally was practicing every day. Like I was doing these mentoring videos and I make them as well. And I would just whatever, it would be like a 2-minute clip of my practice for the day. And so I would practice and practice. And so everything is a
Mm-hmm.
practice. So once you get used to it, it just comes part of your life and it's so much nicer.
Yeah, I mean, you really, you can't just it's I mean, as much as we want to just like reading and wishing things to happen, we really have to put the work into it. And as
Yes.
uncomfortable as putting the work, we have to. It's kind of like you want to build muscle, right?
Hmm.
I mean, you go to a gym, sometimes you're like, I don't feel like getting up, I don't feel like going to the gym. And then you do your cardio or you lift weights. It's uncomfortable. I would rather just sit on my couch and take a nap rather than be here. But that's the growth phase. Your muscles need to be exposed to certain levels of weight and then stretches for it to grow.
Hmm. Right. And then the intention behind that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there's some success stories from your clients. Can you provide an example or some type of transformational success story
Mm-hmm.
where a client was able to liberate themselves from the grips of narcissistic
Uh-huh.
relationship or generational trauma or anything that you
Mm-hmm.
help them with?
That's a long term. I feel like it's like when we talk about really like breaking the cycle, it's like I actually right now my success is having like someone really like recognizing. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, it's not we're still in the recognition phase. It's not their fault because I have one and she was nervous about talking. She got a text from one of her friends. It's like, hey, we need to talk. And automatically her brain was like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? So, right? She's thinking it's her fault. She did something wrong. And then she was talking to me like, well, what am I going to say? Like, okay, if they say this, I'm gonna just say this. It's like she's in survival mode. She's pre-planning. So first she's thinking that it's her fault and
Hmm.
that she did something wrong. And then two, she's pre-planning, pretty much agreeing with that person. Going back to it's my fault, I did something wrong. I have to appease that person in order to smooth things properly. And that's, she's in survival mode, appeasing
Hmm.
and being in survival mode. And I laid it out for her. I said, okay, this is what's happening right now. Just listen to what you're telling your brain or what you're priming in your brain. I said, number one, you're telling yourself it's your fault because you got scared that she wants to talk. You don't know what she wants to talk about. And then, like, right then and there, like, I can see her face just light up, like, you know what? You're right. You don't know, maybe she has issues. Um, that she just, hey, maybe it's not even about you, but here you are because you've been primed to blame. And then she admitted it too. She's like, yeah, I'm a people pleaser and I do like tend to blame myself for everything. So I'm really happy for her that she was able to recognize that and accept that. And then I said, and then here you are, say you're telling yourself, what am I going to do to appease her? Well, so why is it even your fault? Right? You don't know if it's even your fault. Why you're jumping ahead of that? So now you're in panic mode and you're anxious even before you set a time to meet with this person to talk.
I
So it, like
know.
her, this success is just like, wow, like all that in like 2 minutes that I that we had talked about. So and yeah, I would like call it a success number one because she like her eyes were like literally like open and she was more confident talking. to that friend that wanted to have a conversation with her.
That was a big breakthrough. Some people may think it as small, but I mean, I think it is a huge breakthrough just to recognize that, hey, I'm a people pleaser. This is what I do. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a big part of the transformation is just recognizing and having awareness on that and then moving forward to the next step or next level. So that's great. I'm glad that, yay, good for her.
I know, right? I mean, like, and I didn't tell her that, oh, you're this, and it's like she just came out. I helped her. I gave her the space to lay everything out,
Mhm.
and then she had the safety and the time to actually recognize, okay, yep, you know what, you're right. I am a people pleaser, and I get anxious, and I do these things.
Yes, it reminds me of this time with my son. This is when he was younger. He's 15 now, but he was going to Kumon, the little tutoring place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so he was very shy, closed off, doesn't like to really communicate, but he's way better now. But he was younger though. And then he was like so nervous to go inside there, even though he's already been going there for so many, so many sessions. And I said, honey, why are you nervous about something that hasn't even happened yet? Why are you thinking all of these thoughts? Nothing has happened. You haven't even entered in. So don't be nervous about it. It hasn't happened. Let's focus on the present moment now. Be here
Mm-hmm.
now. And so now he always knows the term be here now because focus on the because we get anxious and we get caught up in our head like, oh, what
Yes.
is they're going to think about me? This, that. So a funny story to share with you is that my mom, she's always concerned about other people's opinions. And this probably will go into gestation or gestational. I don't know why I'm thinking uh, generational trauma. And then she was always like always carried about what people had to say. So for me, I had to break that. And one time she asked me, well, don't you care about what they're going to think about you? I'm like, no, because I know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what they think about me because I know who I am. I know who loves me. Like I don't need validation from anybody or their approval. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And it's
So,
liberating, isn't it? Just to like
yes.
to know and just feel that, and it's like, wow, I'm
Yeah.
free.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Now, for someone who feels trapped, because I mean, let me back up a little bit. Let's talk about narcissistic relationships, because I have a lot of listeners who are having trouble in their relationships or want to seek new relationships, but they've always been in bad ones. What
Mm-hmm.
are some signs we can look for in a narcissistic person, or like you
Mm-hmm.
would say, a covert narcissist?
Yeah. So when we think of narcissist, the classic narcissist is like the one who's always just me. It's all about them. But so that's more of the grandiose. Like, okay, I have a God complex. I am so great, and I'll this, and you should just worship me. That's the grandiose narcissist. And then there's the other type that's the covert, more subtle type of narcissist. That's what is much more difficult to recognize, and you don't know that they're narcissists until you're fully made aware of there's that really certain type of it. So so narcissists, like we look at like the main, let's call it the big for short, like they're actually called narc, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because narcissist. So you have your two levels, grandiose, and then you have the more subtle, covert, sensitive narcissist. The grandiose is the one that's like really obvious, the appearance and like the queen. I'm walking around with my head high. That's really obvious. You know they're not, like you can spot that like easily. And then there's the other type that's like, they play victim.
Mhm.
They're more altruistic actually. They do things to be, and they're nice in appearance, and they're people pleasers. They care about what people think of them, and then they do those things so they can be praised and worshiped, like someone. And like in the Bible, like the Pharisees, I would
Yeah.
the Pharisees, they would donate and then they would announce it, right?
Mm. Hmm.
That's the narcissist in the Bible right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so they would do things to be praised and affirmed and recognized. And then they get mean when they don't get that. When like, oh, I did this for you, and you're not even doing anything in return. Well, we're supposed to do things because we want to, because we want to help.
Hmm.
There's always an ulterior motive. That's why they do things. So that's one
Right.
sign. Another sign is they like to play victim.
Hmm.
It's like they would refuse to do things for themselves. And then, there's this woe is me. Oh, look at me, woe is me. But then someone who's recognizing that is like, wait a minute, what do you mean, woe is you? Well, you have this and this, and you did this to yourself. So no, I shouldn't feel sorry for you because you did that to yourself and you're basking in the glory of getting the attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about me, attention, but in a more subtle way. Some of them may even like make themselves sick. That is,
Yikes.
yes, they
Yikes.
would like refuse to get better because they like the attention that they get and people like surrounding them, taking care of them
Mm.
while they're sick. And for someone who don't recognize that, you would like jump right in there and take care of them
Mm-hmm. Right. Or
because
you'd
you're a
be
good
like,
person.
well, girlfriend, didn't you have that just yesterday? Whatever condition they had.
Yeah,
And you
like
got better
you,
and now you're feeling sick again.
I know, like you're walking straight. Why do you think? Yeah.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue because I
Yeah,
totally
I know.
interrupted
So
you.
like these things is like, wow, the lights are blinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then you notice that they don't have true friends. Their friends are just like these temporary ones that they can get them to do things for them. They don't have like deep relationships. Everything is superficial.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the, I mean, one of the classic ways I notice about someone is they don't have like most of their friends are someone like whose status is below them because they want to be the one who's like, I'm here and I'm the one giving you things. So you owe me. They don't look to someone as a mentor. It's you just have to look closer into the patterns of like how the relationships are, how they act.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of sad in a way because in society we look up to people that are that are good with almsgiving, always helpful, and always there for people. But now, like me being aware of what covert narcissism is, I'm like, are you really doing that out of the goodness of your heart, or
Or for praise.
or for praise? Yeah, that would be like the big thing. It's like if someone's always looking for praise, looking
Mm-hmm.
for praise and affirmation, is like, look at me. And no, oh, another big thing is they don't have any empathy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care how you feel. When you're talking to them, they'll quickly cut you off and turn that conversation about them.
Mm-hmm.
And that can
Yes.
get tricky because some people, they're just excited to share and they want you to feel like, oh, I relate with you, but I relate with your story and actually have something to share. They just get excited. But the narcissist would just like, bam, just not even pay attention to what you're saying. All of a sudden, it's all about them. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're talking about them and like what they did. And then, oh, you feel sorry for them. And then all of a sudden, oh, you're doing things for them.
Oh, it's a trap.
It is, it's a trap. It's like a whole enmeshment, it's all entanglement. That's why, and it's so hard to break with families because the rest
Mm.
of the family members that, like the next generation, they think that's just how it is. Well, that's how my mom did it, so must be right.
Right.
That's how I saw my mom treated my mom, my grandma treat my mom. And that's just how it is for generations, but it's not. And it's hard to be a cycle breaker because people around you are telling you that you're mean to your mom. Why are you doing that? It's like, no, I'm setting boundaries because I don't want my children to be this anxious people pleaser and manipulated into doing things. So I am taking that stand to break the cycle now so my children doesn't have to do it, and I'm protecting them. So you're the gatekeeper and you're the wall, and being that wall, you're being questioned and attacked in different angles, saying you're an ungrateful child because you turned your back. And
Yeah.
no one asks if a child is neglected. No one like talks to the mom, maybe some, like, but no one. Rarely, maybe some people do. No one questions a mom that you're neglecting your child. You're a bad mom. And yet, when the child decides to, no, I'm putting boundaries, all of a
Yeah.
sudden the child is a bad child, but no one really just like, well, what happened? So, because for a child, it doesn't happen not open, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, no child wakes up like, nope, I'm not going to talk to my parents anymore. I'm going to move away. They came to that decision through a series of just like self-reflection.
Hmm.
Because it's hard. We all want our parents. We all want to be close to them. We want that family, especially, if you're in a culture where families is everything. It's hard to break away from that and recognize that no, you guys are wrong. And I don't feel good when I'm around you. And you guys are toxic. And I don't want my children to feel that toxicity. And I don't want you manipulating them. So I'm taking
Yeah.
that stand. And yeah, you're shamed and you're made to feel guilty about your decision, and that's why I'm bringing more awareness about this covert narcissist in the family.
Hmm. Yes, and it's yeah, I can relate to so much and I see it too in other friends' families. They're like they
Mm-hmm.
stopped talking to them completely because it was just in the line. But yet that communication is important. You need to maybe communicate to your parents or your family members and say, "Hey, I'm not going to talk to you for a while because of this, because I don't feel aligned when you say this. It doesn't feel good underneath my skin when you do
Mm-hmm.
this. It doesn't align to my morals or values or anything like that."
Mm-hmm.
That communication is important because otherwise, if you shut them off, then they don't even
And
know
they don't
what's
know.
going on.
Yeah, especially for narcissists, they don't do anything wrong, right? In their mind, they're like, why'd you do this? I didn't do anything wrong. I'm
I
perfect.
know. Right,
But
right.
the key is, communication is you tell them, hey, when this happened, I don't want you to do that anymore. Then a mature, loving, non-narcissistic parent would say, "Oh, okay, they'll be more open to you. They'll be more
Hmm.
self-reflective. And they'll say, "Well, I didn't know, that it made you feel that way. I won't do that." They will take steps because they want you around.
Hmm. They love
They
you.
love you. But a narcissist would gaslight you. Like if
Yeah.
if you say, "Okay, I don't want you doing this, this hurt me when you did this." The gaslighting comes like, "Well, you shouldn't have done that." And I can't
Hmm.
even believe. So they'll invalidate you, they'll gaslight you, and like being raised that way, all of a sudden you walk away from that conversation like, "Wow, maybe it is my fault."
Oh, I know when they turn the tables against you when you're trying to communicate nicely, and then they're like, well,
Yes.
what about when you did this? It's like, okay, no, I'm going to stop you right there. I don't need to finish
Yes.
this conversation with you because I don't need it to turn on the tables against me. I just wanted to share. When you're ready to talk to me properly, then we can go ahead and have a nice conversation. But until then,
Yes.
goodbye.
Yes,
You don't need
exactly.
that in your life. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wish we can just all help, like have a little magic wand. Help
Oh, I
everybody.
know. I know. And the sad
Um,
thing is like even when people recognize this, like the internal emotions, because they're so enmeshed, for that certain member of the family, and they know it. But then every now and then they're like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Right? And then you gotta like go back, wait a minute. The facts are, and it's the healing is it's a long process.
mhm. It is a long process, but so worth it, Like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying earlier, it's not like you're gonna wake up and be like, I'm healed all of a sudden,
Yeah.
It's not linear. It's a process and you'll have some rough patches along the way, but that's okay. That's why we're growing and we learn.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, no, for someone who feels trapped in that cycle of toxic relationships, what is the first step they should actually take towards healing and personal growth? Since we're just talking about this.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So really just looking more internally.
Hmm.
Like, okay, why is this always happening? And journaling is just such, get your good old pen and paper or
Yeah.
a really nice notebook, just writing down your thoughts. And then be open to accepting that, okay, there's a pattern that's happening here. So yeah, so being recognizing what's happening, and then to just do some self-reflection. Maybe
Hmm.
because we all, have a part to play in certain situations. We can't just say, "Oh, they're narc," and it's their fault. But maybe because of your reaction, and that's what I'm saying. Be open to yourself as well, because all you can do is control yourself.
Hmm.
Because hurt people,
Hmm.
and healed people help heal people.
Hmm.
So
Oh
we,
yeah, I did a post on that
yeah.
recently too. It
Oh,
reminded me, yeah, exactly what you said. That's great.
yeah, and we self-reflect that, okay, I did have a part to play in that, and recognize that. I could have said things differently. I could have done things differently. Um, but by no means you should walk around like it's always my fault, and I'm just gonna let them walk over me because they're always right and I'm always wrong. No, don't do that.
Yeah, no, that's why I like to listen too, like, because I will admit if I'm wrong, like, you know what, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad. That's
Yeah.
what I always say that. Because I know I'm never right all the time. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
I always like, yeah, go ahead.
oh, and that's the key. The key is, someone who cares about you and is self-reflective and who's, not a narcissist would admit that, you know what, I did have a part to play in that.
Hmm.
And I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. But the narcissist would, no, you shouldn't have acted that way. You made me mad and you made me yell.
They think they're self-righteous, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, I love our conversation. I feel like I could go on forever. But I wanted to ask you,
Mm-hmm.
for our listeners, where can they go ahead and find your website, follow you on social media, all that good stuff?
Mm-hmm. So I am on Instagram, and I have a website. It's called Blue Veil Wellness, blueveilwellness.com. Um, and then I would like them to get my freebie. It's called Ways to Reinvent You. It's a quick PDF, just 8 ways to on how you can take care of yourself, can, do the whole reinvention.
Hmm.
And you don't have to do all of them. And it's a nice way, for you to get a start. So then once they get that, I would email them every week, and then they'll get a link to my Facebook group. And on my Facebook group, I actually give weekly give I do weekly videos
Oh, nice.
about generational trauma, about tools, about narcissism. And on Saturdays, I have a Q&A about the video that I had just talked about. So it's like, hey, you get a free lesson every week, and then we get to have our affirmation in our group support.
That's awesome. Yeah, because community is very important. And so that's so awesome that
Mhm.
you have that platform available to people just to like connect. Sometimes we just need that connection.
Yeah, it's a validation, really. No one, it's worse if you're. It's really hard. It's really difficult to get out of these toxic relationships if you don't have any validation from anyone.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, just knowing that you're not alone and that it's not just you and it's not your fault.
Hmm. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Christy. Any last words or thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, so number one, I would like to know that God meant for you to be here. Remember all the perfect situation and timing that has to happen for you to be born. And God has gazed upon your face even before you came out of your mother's womb. So no one has the right to make you feel that you're not worthy and that you're not loved. And
Amen to that.
yep, don't let anyone tell you who you are. You tell them who you are.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm gonna write that one down. That was great. Well, thank you so much, Christy. It's been a fun time. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yes. Yes, thank you so much. I hope this helps, this helps people uh, elevate themselves and get out of that and break the cycle and protect the next generation.
It definitely will. Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.